Now, the Privatization Commission has finally issued a timeline for the path to privatization for the troubled Chemelil, Miwani, Muhoroni, Nzoia, and Sony sugar millers. Under the privatization program, a 51% stake in each miller will be handed over to a strategic investor for a consideration that is yet to be determined. The Commission has in the recent past faced litigation which they say had bogged down the process. The new arrangement will see a 24% stake go to farmers and employees, while 45% will be retained by the government but can later be sold to trusts for the farmers. The whole process is expected to take up to about half a year to conclude and thus drive the turnaround of the 5 facilities. Well, of course, that is the latest from that sector. Of course, many different stakeholders are wondering what exactly this process will entail, what exactly the timelines are, and of course, for the farmers themselves, what this means for them and their livelihoods. Now, to answer some of these questions and, of course, give us a bit of direction on what exactly to expect. And, of course, shed light on that matter is Jacqueline Moindi. She is the acting CEO at the Privatization Commission. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Peter.
Now, for most Kenyans, when you say privatization, especially of government facilities, the one thing that they will remember is Kengen and Safaricom, but there have been many others. Maybe you can just start off with a bit of background about what exactly this organization does and what you've been doing up to now.
The Privatization Commission is a state corporation established under Section 3 of the Privatization Act, enacted in 2005. And this act was operationalized in 2008 when the first commission members were appointed. What followed immediately was to put in place a privatization program, which is a document highlighting public entities which the government has decided to transfer to the private sector.
Sorry to interrupt you. Maybe you just look at me. For many people, they really don't know why privatize in the first place. Why do we have things that the government owns, which we want to hand over to private sector? Some people would say maybe it's selfish interest, maybe just putting it in a way that a layman would understand.
Yes, talking about the privatization program.
Yes.
Before it is arrived at, entities which are in the public domain have to be analyzed.
Yes.
To see why they were established in the first place. Yes. Whether they are implementing the mandates which they were given, particularly in the enabling instruments. Most of them are an act of parliament, or even articles and memorandum of articles for companies. Once that has been established, then you go to the next step of looking at the benefits which would arise from a transfer of some of those functions to the private sector.
Yes.
And important to note is that the Privatization Act sets out the criteria which should be followed when you are identifying these entities of privatization.
Yes.
Among the key ones is that we aim at improving infrastructure. You also want to enhance the efficiency in delivery of public services. Another benefit which arises from privatization is to have an enhanced capital base. For example, if you have shares floated in the NSC through an IPO process, we have that process availing many shares to the Kenyan public. We're also looking at the separation between the government role in regulating commercial entities and the provision of the services. So government wishes to remain a regulator and cede the commercial operations the private sector. So those are the objectives which we look at before placing entities in the program. Yes.
Let's look at one of the things that has put you in the news recently, a recent ruling that essentially said that the way forward needs to be consultation between the various stakeholders, and the fact that this privatization program is something that is in the best interests of all its stakeholders, especially the mwananchi, the farmer, and other people in there. Talk to us about the ruling itself, what it means, and what we can then expect going forward.
I would start by taking a step back.
Yes.
Why the cases? These were constitutional petitions in the High Court of Kenya, which were seeking certain declarations from the court. And the key ones rotate around the issue of devolution of agriculture, the agriculture function.
Yes.
These millers are using products from the agriculture sector. On the other hand, we have the national government, which owns shares in the 5 state-owned companies.
Yes.
So by seeking to transfer those shares to a private investor, who should be doing that? Is it the national government? Is it the county government? So those are really the issues which were laid in court for determination. And of course, before you decide on how many shares to transfer, there has to be a consultative process. This began way back in 2009 when the detailed proposal was tabled before Cabinet. It was approved and placed before the National Assembly. And the approval was given in 2015 that we proceed with the proposed strategy of giving 51 shareholding in each of the company to a strategic investor, 24% to a trust comprising outgrowers, which are the cane farmers, and employees, and then the 25% remains with the national government until such a time when the needs of the companies will dictate that those shares be transferred. So when we went to court, the court took note that in between the commencement of the litigation and the hearing of the case at the High Court, there was an attempt through the Office of the Attorney General to bring the parties together in a mediation process, and that process had not been exhausted as per the requirements of the Intergovernmental Relations Act of 2012. So the court, having noted that, determined in their wisdom that it's better to have this dispute resolved under the Intergovernmental Relations Framework, because that act also provides for escalation of unresolved disputes to the courts.
Now, because we are almost out of time, maybe finally, so what can people expect, especially in view of the 5 sugar companies that we have just talked about? What is the way forward, very briefly?
The way forward is to do exactly what the court said. We are referring the issues to the Intergovernmental dispute resolution mechanism. And at the same time, we are also consulting the stakeholders, because there are others who are not in court. But we need to carry everybody along. Of course, you realize that the Ministry of Agriculture through the CS was in Kisumu for 2 days on 16th and 17th, trying to lobby the stakeholders and to sell the benefits of the privatization process to them. That process is ongoing. The Commission is joining hands with the ministry to go out there to the stakeholders, so that once that dispute is resolved, we can resume the privatization process of the 51 shareholding to the strategic investors. That is a process which is documented in law. We will need to go and call for expressions of interest from those interested to buy this stake. After that, we'll embark on a bidding process, so that we can get competitive prices for the 51% stake.
Okay. Indeed, very good news there for farmers who've waited for a very long time to start to see some movement on the part of all these organizations, which they hold dear. Indeed, thank you very much, Jacqueline Mwindi from the Privatization Commission, for taking the time to talk to us. Asante.
Karibu.
Indeed, well, that is it from, indeed, the horse's mouth the fact that we will see a start of a process that will eventually lead to the privatization of these 5 sugar mills. And for a lot of the farmers in the ecosystems, a feeling of relief and anticipation to see the direction that this process will take. Indeed, a process that we will keep a very close eye on. We now want to proceed